The mall was loud, bright, and full of movement, but for the twins, it felt strangely quiet. People walked fast in every direction, carrying shopping bags, talking on phones, laughing and arguing. Music played from hidden speakers, mixing with the sound of footsteps and voices. To most people, it was just another busy day. To the twins, it was the moment their small world began to feel unsafe. The twins were still very young. They had been holding hands so tightly that their fingers hurt, but neither wanted to let go. They stood near a clothing store with bright lights and glass windows. Just a short while ago, their mother had told them to wait right there. She had pointed at the bench nearby and said she would be back in a few minutes. She smiled, touched their heads, and walked away into the crowd. At first, the twins were not worried. They had waited before. They talked quietly to each other, counting people who walked past, guessing what was inside the colorful bags. They laughed when someone nearly dropped their shopping. Time felt slow, but not scary yet. But minutes passed. Then more minutes. The twins stopped laughing. They began to look around more often. Each time someone walked by, they hoped it was their mother. Each time it was not. A small part of their calm disappeared. They stayed exactly where they were told. They remembered her words clearly. Do not move. Do not talk to strangers. Wait here. They believed following the rules would make everything okay. The mall seemed bigger now. The lights felt brighter. The crowd felt thicker. People brushed past them without noticing. A few glanced down, but their eyes moved away just as fast. Everyone seemed busy, as if they were all late for something important. One of the twins whispered that maybe their mother was just stuck in a long line. The other nodded, trying to believe it. But worry was starting to show in their faces. Their hands were sweaty. Their shoulders were tense. After a long while, one of the twins gently tugged at the sleeve of a woman walking by. The woman stopped for a second, looked down, and frowned. "Where are your parents?" she asked quickly. The twins tried to explain, but the noise of the mall swallowed their soft voices. The woman looked around, sighed, and said, "You should stay with your family before walking away." She did not mean harm. She just did not stop long enough to understand. The twins watched her leave. Their hope faded again. They tried asking another person, then another. Some did not hear them. Some shook their heads. One person pointed toward security and kept walking. No one stopped. No one knelt down to listen. No one asked the right questions. Slowly, twins stopped asking. They sat down on the bench their mother had pointed to earlier. Their legs dangled above the floor. Their stomachs felt empty. They leaned against each other, sharing warmth and comfort. One of them asked in a shaky voice, what if their mother forgot where they were? The other quickly said she would never forget. But even while saying it, their eyes filled with tears. They remembered coming to the mall earlier that day. Their mother had seemed tired but happy. She had promised them a treat after shopping. They remembered the sound of her voice, calm and sure. That memory now felt far away. The twins looked around again. Every face they saw was unfamiliar. The mall no longer felt exciting. It felt like a maze with no exit. A security guard walked past them, talking into a radio. The twins watched closely, hoping he would notice them, but he did not stop. He was already dealing with another problem somewhere else. The twins were left behind once more. They did not cry loudly. They did not scream. They just sat there, quiet and still. That made it easier for people to miss them. Time kept moving. The lights outside the mall slowly changed as the day passed. The crowd shifted. New people came in, others left. The twins stayed where they were, holding on to the last bit of hope that their mother would suddenly appear. Their fear grew in small steps. First came worry, then confusion, then the heavy feeling that something was wrong. One of the twins whispered that they were scared. The other wrapped an arm around them and said it would be okay. They repeated those words again and again. It's like a promise they were trying to keep alive. They noticed how different people acted around them. Some laughed loudly. Some argued over prices. Some scolded their children. Life continued all around them, untouched by their fear. The twins wondered why no one seemed to see them. They were right there, sitting in the open. Yet it felt like they were invisible. A store worker came out and rearranged items near the entrance. The twins looked up with hope. But the worker avoided eye contact and went back inside. Their feet began to hurt from sitting still. Their throats felt dry. One of them asked if they should stand up and look for help again. The other was afraid. They remembered their mother's words and did not want to break the rules, so they waited. Every sound made them look up. Every shadow made their hearts jump. But each time it was someone else. The mall, once full of color, now felt cold and uncaring. The twins felt small in a place that suddenly seemed too big. As evening slowly approached, the fear inside them grew stronger. They did not know that this was only the beginning. They did not know that one small choice, one simple moment of kindness, would soon change everything. For now, they were just two quiet children sitting on a bench, surrounded by people. Yet completely alone, the twins sat on the bench, holding each other, watching the people pass. The mall had grown even busier, with the evening crowd arriving, bringing more noise and more movement. Stores turned on their brighter lights, music grew louder, and the smell of fast food filled the air. The twins tried to stay calm, whispering to each other that their mother would come back soon. But deep down, their hearts were racing. They noticed the people around them. Families walked past, parents holding hands with their own children, laughing and talking. The twins felt invisible. It seemed like everyone had somewhere to go and someone to be with. No one stopped to look at them twice. One of the twins suggested they walk around the mall to see if they could spot their mother. The other was afraid. They had been told to stay put, and the idea of moving felt risky. But fear was growing, and staying still seemed even worse. After a few quiet whispers, they agreed to take small steps, holding hands tightly, and moving slowly through the crowd. As they walked, they realized how huge the mall really was. The bright stores stretched in every direction, and escalators went up and down, carrying strangers they could not name or recognize. Every turn seemed to lead them further away from where they had started. The twins tried to remember landmarks like a tall fountain they had passed, or a shop with a glowing sign. But it all looked different from this angle, and soon, they felt even more lost. They stopped near a fountain in the center of the mall. Water splashed softly, making ripples, but it could not calm their racing hearts. They watched the reflections of shoppers in the water, faces moving too fast to catch a full expression. The twins realized they were still small, just tiny shadows in a place full of big, moving people. A few children ran past them, shouting and laughing. The twins waved, hoping to join in, but the children did not notice. It was a reminder that they were alone, even among others their own age. They tried asking a few nearby adults for help. One man was busy on his phone and only nodded without really looking. A woman with shopping bags smiled politely, but shook her head and walked away. The twins learned that people were polite, but being polite did not mean helping. That thought made their stomachs tighten. They remembered their mother's words about not talking to strangers. Now, those words seemed both safe and limiting. They did not know who to trust. Every adult looked like a stranger in this enormous space, and yet staying quiet did not solve anything either. The twins decided to sit again, this time on a low step near a shop. Their hands were still tightly clasped. They whispered to each other, sharing fears they had not said out loud before. One admitted being hungry. The other admitted being tired. They talked about how confusing the mall was, how loud it felt, and how their hearts seemed to pound in time with every passing step. Time passed slowly. Their hope of seeing their mother started to waver. They wondered if she had forgotten them, or if something bad had happened. One twin whispered, almost to themselves, that maybe they would never see her again. The words hung in the air, heavy and frightening. The twins noticed how people moved around them without noticing them. Security guards walked past, talking into radios, dealing with other problems. Store workers passed by, focused on displays or customers. No one stopped. No one knelt down to ask if they were okay. A small child dropped a toy nearby. The twins looked at it, wishing they had something to play with to distract themselves. But they could not pick it up without feeling like they were breaking the rules of staying put. They were trapped in a world that seemed to care about everything except them. The twins began to feel cold. Even though the mall was warm, their hands were clammy. Their legs ached from sitting and standing so long. They whispered to each other that it would be okay, repeating the words like a mantra. Repeating them made them feel slightly braver, but not safe. They tried to imagine their mother walking through the crowd. They pictured her face, her hands, her voice calling their names. That image kept them going for a while. They repeated their mother's instructions, trying to follow them perfectly. They knew she would want them to be careful, to stay together, and to not panic. Hours seemed to pass. The mall's lights began to dim slightly in preparation for closing. Announcements over the loudspeakers reminded shoppers of store hours, sales, and safety rules. The twins listened, trying to hear their mother's voice, but it never came. They realized that being invisible in a crowd meant that nobody would notice them unless someone made an effort. Their stomachs growled. Their throats were dry. They looked at food courts filled with families eating happily. The smell made them hungry, but they could not ask anyone for food. They were alone and unsure who would help. One of the twins suggested going to the information desk, hoping someone there would understand. The other nodded, and they slowly walked, holding hands, toward the desk. But the desk was surrounded by adults who seemed busy and uninterested. A clerk noticed them but only waved them away, saying that help would come if needed. Without even looking serious, the twins sat down again, feeling more helpless than before. They whispered to each other, trying to be brave. They talked about their mother, trying to remember her smile, her calm voice, and how she always promised that everything would be okay. Those memories were the only comfort they had as the evening continued. The mall emptied slightly, but the twins remained unnoticed. The staff began closing stores, turning off displays, and counting inventory. Shoppers were leaving with bags full of items, still unaware of the two small children sitting quietly near a bench. The twins' fear was growing stronger, but a small part of them refused to give up hope. They repeated to each other that their mother would come back. They repeated it until their voices were hoarse. They believed it even when everything around them suggested otherwise. A few people glanced at them, but it was always too brief. A mother with her child walking past only said, "Be careful, little ones," without stopping. A man hurried by, saying he was late, ignoring the twins entirely. The world was moving too fast for them, and they were too small to be noticed. The twins held each other even tighter. Their fear was now mixed with exhaustion. They leaned on each other for comfort, finding strength in the connection they shared. In that moment, they were not entirely alone. Their bond was the only constant in a chaotic, uncaring world. The mall continued its business, full of life and movement, but for the twins, it had become a place of anxiety and uncertainty. They did not cry loudly, did not scream, did not run. They stayed small, quiet, and hopeful. Their hearts held on to the last pieces of trust in the world, that their mother would find them, that someone would notice, that someone would care. They did not know that help was closer than they thought. They did not know that one small moment, one kind choice would soon change everything. For now, they were still two quiet children in a busy mall, invisible to everyone but each other. The twins had been sitting on the bench for what felt like forever. Their small hands were sore from holding each other so tightly. Their stomachs ached, and their legs were stiff from sitting and standing too long. Fear had been growing quietly, like a shadow stretching in the corners of the mall. Their hope was shrinking with every passing minute. They did not know how much longer they could stay calm. As the evening continued, the mall began to quiet down a little. The crowds thinned, and the bright lights of the stores dimmed slightly. The twins noticed it immediately. The music seemed softer, but the air still carried the smell of snacks, perfumes, and freshly bought items. The difference in noise made the silence around them feel heavier. It made them feel smaller. Then they noticed him. He was not flashy or loud. He did not wear a uniform or carry a badge. He was just an ordinary man, walking slowly, his eyes scanning the area in a way that felt different from everyone else. He looked at the stores, but he also looked at the people. He looked at everyone and somehow, it seemed, he noticed the twins. The twins did not know at first that he was looking at them. He stopped a few feet away and watched quietly. He crouched slightly to look at them at eye level, not in a threatening way, but in a calm, careful way. There was something gentle about his face, about the way he moved. It was not sudden or demanding. It was steady, almost like he was giving them permission to trust him. The twins were hesitant. They had been told not to talk to strangers. That lesson had kept them careful all day. But something about him did not feel like a stranger. His eyes were kind. His expression was patient. His voice, when he finally spoke, was soft, not loud, not commanding, just quiet and steady. "Hello," he said gently. "Are you okay?" The twins looked at each other unsure. They whispered to each other, debating if they should answer. One of them finally nodded a little, just enough for him to see. The man crouched closer, but stayed at a safe distance. He smiled gently, not too wide, just enough to show he was friendly. "Can you tell me your names?" he asked, keeping his tone calm and patient. The twins hesitated, then spoke softly. He listened carefully, nodding as if each word mattered. He did not interrupt or rush them. That simple act of listening made the twins feel something they had not felt in hours. Trust. He asked another question. Slowly, carefully, "Can you tell me where your mom went?" The twins explained in small, soft words, holding on to each other. They described the bench, the store, the way their mother had waved goodbye. He listened to every detail, nodding again, never judging, never rushing. He made no sudden movements. He did not try to take control too fast. He gave them time to speak, which made them feel safe. As the twins spoke, he noticed the small signs of fear and exhaustion. Their clothes were slightly wrinkled from sitting and standing. Their hairs stuck up in places, their faces pale. He could see they had been alone for a long time. He did not panic. He stayed calm, knowing that calmness could help them more than anything else. "Would you like to sit somewhere more comfortable?" he asked. The twins nodded quietly. He offered his hand, not pulling, just showing support. Slowly, they got up and followed him to a nearby cafe that was closing but still had a few empty chairs. He helped them sit. Making sure they felt secure, he bought 2 small bottles of water from a vending machine and handed them to the twins. They drank slowly, realizing their throats were dry and parched. They whispered thank you. He nodded but did not make a big deal about it. He knew they needed comfort, not attention. "Can you tell me again what happened?" he asked softly, sitting across from them. He leaned slightly forward, giving them space, but showing he was fully present. The twins repeated their story, telling him about waiting on the bench, being ignored, and their fear that their mother had forgotten them. He listened, nodding, not interrupting. When they finished, he said, "You have been very brave. I am glad I found you." His words were simple, but they felt like a shield around the twins, protecting them from the fear that had been building. He asked a few more questions, carefully and slowly, making sure he understood the situation correctly. The twins felt relief in the fact that he was not rushing them, not treating them like troublemakers. They felt understood for the first time in hours. Then he said, "I think I know how we can find your mom quickly." The twins leaned in, hopeful but cautious. He explained calmly that they would go with him to the security office. He would talk to the staff there, explain the situation, and make sure their mother was found. He promised to stay with them the entire time. The twins nodded. They trusted him. His calmness gave them courage. They had been invisible all day, ignored by everyone, but he had noticed them. He had chosen to care. That choice changed everything. They walked slowly, holding hands with him, guiding them gently through the now quieter mall. He explained where they were going, what would happen next, and reassured them at every step. Each word, each gesture, built trust. They felt safer than they had since their mother left. As they approached the security office, they saw officers still busy with their tasks. He spoke to them quietly but firmly, explaining the situation, telling them about the twins. making sure they understood that these children needed help immediately. The officers listened and acted quickly. For the first time that day, the twins felt that someone was taking them seriously. One officer approached and knelt down to their level, speaking gently. "We are going to find your mom," he said. "You don't need to be afraid anymore." The twins clung to each other, feeling the first real relief since the day began. The man stayed with them through every step. He did not leave. He did not look away. He just stayed calm and patient. He spoke softly, explaining what the officers were doing. Answering questions, the twins whispered, and keeping them reassured. The twins began to feel their fear lifting slightly. They could see a path forward. They could see that their mother might be found. For hours, they had felt invisible, alone, and helpless. Now they were seen, cared for, and guided by someone who chose to notice them. While waiting, he told them simple stories, small jokes, anything to distract them from their fear. They laughed softly, a sound that had been missing all day. The laughter was small, but powerful. A tiny spark of light in a dark day, the twins realized how important it was to have someone who believed them, someone who did not judge, someone who stayed calm. That realization gave them hope. Their mother was still out there, and now it was close. Hours of anxiety and fear were not gone, but the presence of this one kind stranger had changed the course of the day. The twins felt safe enough to trust him, to let go of some fear, to imagine seeing their mother again. The first step toward reunion had begun, and it all started because he chose to notice, to care, and to act. They did not yet know what would happen next, but for the first time, they felt that the day could end with relief rather than fear. The mall that had felt cold and uncaring now seemed like a place where kindness could exist, even in the smallest moments. And for the twins, that was enough to hold on to. The security office was calm compared to the rest of the mall. The twins sat on small chairs holding each other's hands. The stranger stayed close, crouching so he could talk to them without bending over too far. He explained that the officers were trying to find their mother and that they would be reunited soon. The twins listened quietly, their eyes wide, his heart still heavy from hours of fear, but now carrying a small spark of hope. The officers worked quickly. Phones rang, radios buzzed, and people moved with purpose. The stranger explained each step to the twins, telling them which areas were being checked and what the officers were asking. Each explanation, spoken in his calm, gentle voice, helped the twins stay patient. Even though every second felt like an eternity, the twins whispered to each other, imagining what their mother might be feeling. They pictured her looking for them, worried, searching through the same crowds, hoping they were safe. That thought made them both anxious and determined. They wanted to see her, to know that everything would be okay. Finally, an officer came back with news. They had found the mother in a small medical room near the food court. She had collapsed from exhaustion and a sudden illness and was being cared for by the mall's medical staff. Relief surged through the twins. Their mother was alive. She was safe, and soon they would be together again. The stranger stood and held out his hands, guiding the twins toward the area where their mother was. The twins clung to each other as they walked, nervous about what they would see. The stranger whispered that everything would be fine, that their mother had been worried, but was being helped now. When they reached the medical room, they saw her. She was sitting up, a blanket over her shoulders, looking tired but alert. The moment their eyes met hers, everything changed. The twins ran toward her, their small legs moving as fast as they could. Their mother leaned down, arms wide, and they threw themselves into her embrace. Tears streamed down their faces. The mother held them tightly, whispering their names over and over. She apologized for leaving them, explaining that she had not meant to go so far, that she had only gone for a moment to make a quick purchase. Her voice trembled, showing her relief and love. The twins could feel her heartbeat against theirs, steady and warm, a comforting rhythm that erased hours of fear. The stranger stepped back slightly, giving the family space. The twins did not notice him at first, completely focused on their mother. She hugged them tightly, asking questions, listening to their story, and promising that nothing like this would happen again. Her voice was gentle but firm, filled with care and concern. The twins recounted everything that had happened. They told her how no one had helped, how they had felt invisible, and how scared they had been. She listened, tears in her eyes, holding them close. Then she looked at the stranger, understanding his role without needing a detailed explanation. She thanked him, her voice full of gratitude. The twins looked at him too, feeling relief and a small burst of admiration for someone who had cared when no one else had. The mother explained that she had fainted and had been taken to the medical room, and that officers had been looking for the twins immediately after realizing they were missing. She apologized again, hugging them both tightly. The twins whispered that it was not their fault, that they had been brave and patient. Their mother smiled, understanding the courage it had taken for them to wait. The stranger stayed nearby, quiet, not needing attention or praise. His presence had been enough to guide the twins safely back to their mother. The family finally left the medical room together, the twins walking hand in hand with their mother, and the stranger quietly following to ensure they reached the exit safely. As they walked, the twins held their mother's hands tightly. Feeling the warmth and safety they had missed all day, they looked at the stranger one last time, grateful for his calmness, his patience, and his kindness. He smiled gently, nodded, and then quietly moved back, letting the family walk ahead together. His role had been simple but powerful. He had noticed, cared, and acted. The mall now seemed different to the twins. It was still large and noisy, but it had become a place where kindness could exist, where someone could see them and make a difference. The fear and anxiety that had filled the day were still memories, but now they were mixed with relief, gratitude, and the sense of being truly seen. The family walked toward the exit, their arms around each other. The twins whispered to their mother about small details of the day, sharing their experience with someone who finally listened. Their mother laughed softly, comforted by their bravery and honesty, and promised to make their next visit to the mall safe and fun. The stranger disappeared into the crowd quietly, unnoticed by most, but his impact was clear. Without him, the reunion might have been delayed, or the fear prolonged. His simple act of noticing and caring had changed everything. The twins held on to their mother as they exited the mall, feeling safe and loved. The hours of anxiety, the fear of being invisible, the exhaustion, and the quiet desperation all melted into relief. They realized how fragile safety could feel and how powerful kindness could be. In a world that had seemed uncaring for so long, one person's attention and patience had made all the difference. The mall continued its evening business, with shoppers moving past, lights shining, and music playing. But for the twins and their mother, it was no longer just a busy, impersonal place. It was the place where they had been reunited, where fear had turned into relief, where trust and care had guided them back to each other. That evening, the twins learned the true meaning of hope, patience, and the quiet power of one kind stranger who chose to act when no one else did. The twins and their mother walked slowly toward the mall exit, holding each other's hands tightly. The fear that had filled their day was slowly giving way to relief and comfort. Their small hands felt warm inside their mothers, and every step they took brought them closer to safety, to home, and to a place where the day's events would slowly turn into a memory they could understand as they walked. The twins kept looking around, still aware of the mall's size and the number of people moving past them. They had felt invisible for so long, and it made them think about how easy it was for someone to be unnoticed in a crowd. They realized that being seen mattered, that even small acts of attention could change someone's day entirely. They spoke softly with their mother, telling her about how they had felt, how scared and alone they had been. She listened carefully, holding their hands and hugging them when they needed it. Her voice was steady, calm, and full of love. She told them that she understood, that she was sorry for leaving them even for a short time, and that it was not their fault. Her words, simple and clear, wrapped around them like a protective shield. The twins also talked about the stranger who had helped them. They explained how he had noticed them when no one else did, how he had listened, and how he had stayed calm while guiding them to safety. Their mother's eyes softened, filled with gratitude, and she looked around to see if she could find him. But he had quietly moved away, blending back into the crowd. The twins realized that his kindness did not need recognition. He had acted simply because it was the right thing to do. The mother promised the twins they would always have a plan for the future. They would agree on a meeting point, hold hands, and stay close. She would make sure that they knew what to do if anything unusual ever happened again. The twins nodded, still holding her hands. Feeling safer with her close presence, they stepped outside the mall, where the evening air was cooler and fresher. The bright lights of the stores behind them were warm but distant now. The fear that had weighed them down all day was starting to lift, replaced by relief, gratitude, and a sense of wonder at how quickly things could change. When someone cared enough to act, the twins looked at each other and then at their mother. They realized that the day had taught them important lessons. They had learned to be brave, even when scared. They had learned the importance of patience, trust, and hope. Most of all, they had learned that one person noticing them, one person taking the time to act, could make all the difference. As they walked home, they passed by other children playing and families laughing. They remembered how they had felt invisible earlier, and it made them think about how many other people might be unnoticed or alone, even for a short while. The twins made a quiet promise to each other that if they ever saw someone in need, they would try to notice, to care, and to act. Just like the stranger who had helped them, their mother held them both close, speaking softly about the day, about courage, and about the small acts that could make a big difference. She reminded them that even when the world seemed too big or too fast, kindness was always possible. The twins listened carefully, understanding that their experience was not just a scary memory, but a lesson in hope, compassion, and human connection. They reached their home, safe and tired, but feeling the warmth of family and security. The mother prepared a small meal for them, and as they ate together, the twins recounted the events once more. Each retelling was filled with emotions they had felt: fear, hope, trust, and finally relief. Their mother nodded, reassured by their words, proud of their courage, and grateful for the stranger whose quiet kindness had made the reunion possible. Later, before going to bed, the twins whispered to each other about how different the day could have been if he had not noticed them. They understood that the world could be unkind, but they also realized that kindness existed in quiet, simple moments. One person's choice to care had changed everything for them, turning fear into safety, worry into relief, and loneliness into reunion. As they drifted off to sleep, the twins held each other's hands, feeling the steady heartbeat of their mother nearby. They thought about the stranger and how small actions could create big results. Their hearts were full of gratitude and understanding. They had learned that being brave, being patient, and trusting the right person could lead to safety and hope. The mother looked at her children, smiling softly, knowing that the day had been difficult but meaningful. She understood how important it was for the twins to feel seen and cared for. She reflected on the stranger's quiet heroism and made a silent promise to always teach her children the power of noticing and helping others. The day had started with fear, confusion, and feeling invisible. It had ended with safety, love, and gratitude. The twins had learned that sometimes the right person at the right moment could make all the difference. They had experienced firsthand the power of kindness, the importance of patience, and the relief that came from being seen, heard, and cared for. The story of the twins in the mall became a lesson they would carry with them forever. That no matter how busy or overwhelming the world seemed, one person's choice to notice and act could change everything. That lesson stayed with them as they slept, holding each other, safe and loved. Dreaming of a world where people looked out for each other, one kind act at a time. The day after the mall incident, the twins woke up feeling the mix of relief and lingering anxiety from the previous day. The memory of being lost and unnoticed in the crowded mall still stayed in their minds, but it was now balanced by the comforting memory of the stranger who had helped them and the safe return to their mother. They sat at the breakfast table, holding on to each other's hands, sharing quiet smiles with their mother. She poured them warm milk and gave them small pieces of toast, her eyes full of care and love. Their mother spoke gently, asking them how they felt now that they were home and safe. The twins described the fear, the loneliness, and the moments when it seemed no one would notice them. Their mother listened attentively, nodding and holding their hands. She reassured them that they had been very brave, that they had made good choices, and that it was okay to feel scared. She explained that sometimes even adults in the world get busy and do not notice small things. But it does not mean no one cares. After breakfast, the twins played quietly, drawing pictures of them all and the stranger who had helped them. They drew his calm face, the gentle way he crouched to their level, and how he had guided them to safety. Drawing helped them process the day, and it also reminded them that kindness could come from people they did not know, but who could still make a difference in their lives. Their mother suggested they go for a short walk outside to enjoy the fresh air. The twins held her hands tightly as they stepped outside. The sunlight felt warm, the sounds of the street lively but different from the crowded mall. The air smelled of flowers and nearby street food. The world felt bigger now, but also safer. They began talking about the events of the previous day, sharing their feelings more openly than they had been able to in the heat of fear. One twin spoke about how it felt to be invisible, to have so many people around but no one paying attention. The other twin added that even when they tried asking for help, people just walked by. Their mother nodded, saying that she understood and that she would always make sure they knew who to turn to in a crowded place. She reminded them that their courage and patience had been important, that waiting and holding on to hope had helped them until the right person arrived. The twins listened carefully, understanding that bravery could be quiet. It did not always have to be loud or obvious. Being brave could mean waiting, being patient, and trusting that someone would care enough to notice. They realized that the stranger's kindness had shown them what it meant to act with care and thoughtfulness. They made a small promise to themselves to always try to be that kind of person to others in need. As they walked, they noticed people around them. A small child crying near a shop, an elderly man struggling with a shopping bag, a woman looking confused with a map. The twins looked at each other and remembered the feeling of being overlooked. They whispered to their mother that they wanted to help if they could. She smiled warmly and encouraged them to be careful, but to notice when someone might need assistance. It was the first lesson in empathy beyond their own experience, and it made their hearts feel full when they returned home. The twins' mother suggested they write a letter or a note for the stranger who had helped them. They did not know his name, and they had not seen him again, but they wanted to express their gratitude. Together, they drew pictures, wrote simple messages, and spoke about how important his actions had been. The exercise was more than just a thank you. It was a way to understand the impact of kindness and to cherish the memory of being cared for when they needed it most. In the afternoon, the twins' mother called a few friends and relatives to share what had happened. She told them how the twins had been lost, how people in the mall had not helped, and how a single stranger had made everything right. She spoke carefully, not blaming anyone, but emphasizing the importance of noticing others. The twins listened, proud of themselves for enduring the day and for recognizing the difference one person could make. Later, twins returned to their drawings. They added more details, imagining the mall in a kinder light, people stopping to help, friendly faces guiding lost children, and small acts of care happening all around. The act of imagining a better world helped them process the anxiety of the previous day and reinforced the lesson that even small acts could have a big impact as evening approached. The mother suggested they have a quiet family dinner. The twins helped set the table, placing napkins and utensils carefully. They talked softly about the day, about how they had felt, and how they had learned important lessons. Their mother listened, smiling gently, and shared stories from her own childhood about times she had needed help and how small acts of kindness had changed her experiences. The twins felt a deep sense of connection and understanding. They realized that the world was complex, that people could sometimes be distracted or unaware, but that kindness always mattered. They understood that being brave, patient, and observant could make a difference, not just for themselves, but for others as well. After dinner, the family sat together in the living room. The twins cuddled up close to their mother, feeling the warmth and safety of being home. They reflected on the stranger, wondering if he knew the full impact of his actions. They understood that sometimes people act without expecting recognition, but their choices can ripple outward, changing lives quietly, but profoundly. Before bed, the twins helped tidy up the room, talking quietly about the day. They shared their hopes for the future, to be helpful, to notice others, and to always act with care when someone might need them. Their mother hugged them, proud of their insight and compassion, and reminded them that these lessons would stay with them throughout life. As they climbed into bed, the twins held each other's hands, feeling safe and loved. They thought about them all, the fear, the loneliness, and finally, the relief and reunion. They understood that life could be unpredictable, but that kindness, patience, and courage could make even the most frightening experiences manageable. Their mother kissed their foreheads, whispered words of reassurance, and turned off the light. The twins lay quietly, holding hands, reflecting on the day's lessons. They understood the power of one person noticing, acting with care, and helping when it was needed most. They knew that the world could be scary, but it could also be full of small, meaningful acts of kindness. The twins drifted to sleep, dreaming of a world where people looked out for each other, where patience and courage mattered, and where one simple act of care could change everything. They understood that their experience was more than just a frightening day. It was a lesson in hope, its compassion, and the quiet, powerful impact of noticing someone in need. And with that understanding, they slept peacefully, feeling safe, loved, and ready to face the world again.